Welcome back to Weekends with Alex Witt. As Washington tries to avert another fiscal crisis, people across the nation are bracing for the effects should the sequester kick in on March 1st. Just about every agency, including the Transportation Department, which oversees air traffic control, will be impacted. NBC's Michelle Franzen has more on what's in store if Washington misses this sequester deadline. Michelle.
Well, Alex, like you said, just about every federal agency could feel the brunt of these automatic cuts if Washington can't reach a deal by Friday. The Defense Department could take the biggest hit. They could see a cut of nearly $43 billion, which will impact weapons purchases and base operations. Now, under the sequester, we could see nearly 1 million layoffs, including 800,000 civilian Defense Department workers, 10,000 teachers and educators, and about 1,000 FBI and Border Patrol agents. But this sequester will touch on every lives of Americans in some ways that they don't even realize. For example, the basic commodity of meat. Consumers could face a shortage of meat as the Agriculture Department might be forced to furlough meat inspectors for up to 15 days. In the country's national parks, a 5% budget cut could force the Park Service to slash services, shorten visiting hours, and even force them to close off some areas to visitors. And as Transportation Secretary Ray LaHood explained, air travel could also come to a crawl.
Travelers should expect delays. Flights to major cities like New York, Chicago, and San Francisco and others could experience delays of up to 90 minutes during peak hours because we have fewer controllers on staff.
Meantime, in Washington, President Obama plans to speak with Congress this weekend to avert another crisis, but both sides are ramping up the blame game. Listen to what the president said about the looming sequester during a press conference yesterday.
I never think that anything's inevitable. We always have the opportunity to make the right decisions. My hope is that we can see a different course taken by Congress. This should be a no-brainer.
Solutions the president is confident will work, but unless he can cut a deal with Congress, Alex, we could see drastic changes kick in this time next week.
All right, Michelle Franzen, thank you for that. So for reaction to all this, joining me now, Republican Congresswoman Marsha Blackburn, member of the Budget Committee and Vice Chair of the Energy and Commerce Committee. Representative Blackburn, nice to have you back to the show. Good day to you.
Good to be with you, Alex.
So we have the president who says this is a no-brainer. In that same address, he also said that Congress can stop the sequester at any time. How do you respond to that?
Well, I find it all very interesting because we didn't have to be in this situation in the first place. If the Senate would have taken up any of the bills we had last year that would have addressed this, and the House passed them, some of them with bipartisan support, Alex, sent them to the Senate. They chose not to take them up. We have Chairman McKeon, who is chairman of the Armed Services Committee, who has the legislation that would freeze federal salaries, freeze the bureaucracy salaries for a 3-year period of time that would forestall the sequester on DOD for a year. I mean, my goodness, there are solutions there, but let me tell you this. If you were out with me this morning talking to the National Guard, meeting with constituents, going to a pancake breakfast, you would have heard people say, Marsha, 2% discretionary cut, that's a good start. Let's make it 10%, and let's protect the military. Don't cut them. Get over here and make cuts into these federal agencies. Get rid of these redundant programs. Let's make certain that government is smarter and more efficient and use this as an opportunity.
Now, may I ask you, were any of those of your constituents, I presume, with whom you were speaking, were these folks who might lose their job as a consequence of the sequester?
I had a great email from someone yesterday who has done some supply work for the military that is going to lose a contract and part of a contract, and they were saying, you all have got to get this federal spending under control. And when you talk about those that are involved with protecting our nation, they are incredibly concerned about what the debt is doing to our nation's security. You know, Admiral Mullen had said on July 6th of 2010, the greatest threat to our nation's security is our nation's debt. So they realize this is not going to be easy. Our small businesses know this isn't going to be easy, but they know discretionary spending has to be cut, entitlements have to be reformed, and Medicare and Social Security, our trust funds, have to be stabilized. And, you know, Americans are up to the challenge on this.
What about, though, the prospect of closing some of the tax loopholes? This is something that even Mitt Romney, your party's candidate, campaigned on, but now the president is making these suggestions, and all of a sudden it's a moot point, something that Republicans don't want to do. Where's the problem here? Is it because the president's proposing it?
No, and I would disagree with you just a little bit on that. We have long advocated for cleaning up the tax code, and doing tax reform is one of the things on our to-do list this year. And even when you look at some of these loan guarantee programs like the Department of Energy has had, my goodness, it is just waste, fraud, and abuse run amok. And now we're finding out that some of those that got some of these loans are being sold to China, interest in China and other areas that may not wish us well, and that causes us concern also. So it's an opportunity there again to go clean up some of these loan guarantee programs, get rid of some of these redundancies. Do we really need 80 different economic development programs that are coming through the Department of Commerce? Do we need 100 economic development programs coming through transportation? Do we need 82 different teacher quality programs in the Department of Education? Those are the questions that should be asked, and our constituents are saying, hold firm, stay with this, let's get government on the track that it should be so that our future is sustainable.
That may be, but if you look at some opinion polls here, this one from USA Today, the majority of Americans are supporting the White House's plans for all these major issues. Do you worry at all that the Republican Party is not on the right side of public opinion?
I think that what many people, whether they support the president or us, what they're saying is Washington doesn't have a revenue problem, it has a spending problem, and we want this issue addressed. We want government to be right-sized. And if you look at some of the verbatims on that, they're not saying go spend more. What they're saying is you need to be spending less and don't waste our money. And we hear it repeatedly. And I have to tell you, there are many of us that are in Congress that served in state legislatures. And state legislatures have long used the process of going in and doing across-the-board cuts, providing flexibility, which is something we want to do with the Department of Defense, providing flexibility to departments so that when you make cuts, you say, look, you got $1,000 last year, we're going to give you a 10% cut, you're going to have $900, you go find where you want to make those cuts. Well, now, that process works in right-sizing government, and people want us to have a smart, responsive, affordable, efficient government, and we're going to have to use this as an opportunity to put us on that track. So does March 1st come and go with or without a deal? I would hope that March 1st comes with the president coming and working with us, Alex. I have to tell you, it has been so deeply disappointing to me to see him go out and campaign rather than coming to the Hill and saying, let's work through this together because it's for the good of the American people. Well, we do know that the president, though, has reached out to Mitch McConnell and John Boehner and made calls to them, so we will see if those calls yield any information. I think calls were made yesterday. A call was placed yesterday. I think Thursday, and it was the first time. But see, you know, there again, through the fiscal cliff issues, we should have been working on this. He should have been working with us on an ongoing basis. We're going to see what happens. Hopefully, we'll see that happen. Now that Congress is back in session on Monday. All right, Congressman Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee. Thank you so much.